Hello, hello, it's Amy in my classroom at So Simple of Lynchburg, which is home of amyquilts.com. And this is part 2 of a live look at the brand new Janome M17, the Continental M17. And I was doing a live. We went for over an hour, and of course, the phone batteries gave up the ghost. So I thought I'd pop in, talk a little bit more, and then, it's Saturday evening. It's time to head for home. Had a busy week this week, but I am back into the sewing part of the machine. Let's wake it up. And here's that embroidery that I was doing. And if you watch the first part, you know that I turned the design into an applique here with the white, with an extra little edge there, so it looked like I did it on purpose and not like it was a bad trim job. This pattern is on the machine, and it's stitched out nicely. Need to give it a little press. It's a little wrinkled from flipping right side out, but that was fun. And now I am back to doing my applique with decorative stitches. Now this was started on my 15,000, and I did the outside petals, the pink and the purple on the outside edges on the 15,000, and then I started on this machine and of course ran out of battery. So I'm going to start that back up and tell you about a couple of cool things that I learned on this machine that none of the other high-end Janomes have. Actually, none of the Janomes have. And it's something people have kind of wondered about, asked for, which is pretty cool. So let's get you guys over to the screen, which means I need to undo the camera mount just a little bit so we can see this. So I am doing applique with this little kind of star stitch, little decorative stitch, and I have tweaked the length and the width, and you can tell that because those little dots signify the default settings for that stitch. This is width, this is length, there's tension, there's the presser foot pressure. And I've adjusted it quite a bit because I wanted it to be fairly small. And that's not the stitch I'm going to use now, but I think I am going to go ahead and save this setting for later because I liked it. So I'm going to save it as favorite stitch number 1, which will retain those settings for me. And let's just double check by getting it out of the folder. There they are. Come back. Now, favorite stitch settings, not entirely new to Janome. Several of our machines have that. But one of the things that we have that is very exciting is this back to the beginning button. And again, several of our Janome machines have the back to the beginning button. But when you started the stitch over, going to the beginning of the stitch pattern, it would tie off a knot. We have the ability to turn that on or turn it off now, which is awesome. Because, when you turn a corner, you don't necessarily want to tie a knot. You just want to turn the corner and not have your stitch continue in a reverse if it was in the middle of the stitch pattern. So that is pretty stinking awesome. And let's come back. Well, actually, let's choose a stitch. I'm going to stitch this big pink petal here next. I suppose I could do a blanket stitch or something, but I like trying different stitches. It's fun for me. So I'm going to go to this Quilt Style section, and we've got a lot of new categories for our different stitches. even our created stitches. But let's go back to this quilt style. These are all new stitches. You don't have these on the other machines. Well, there's a couple, but most of these are brand new stitches, and I've already played with a couple of them. I used this star stitch already on a couple of the petals. I'll show that when we get back over to the needle. Let's see what else we have here. Oop, wrong way. 1 of 3 pages in this. And, oh, that's interesting, but that won't cover up my edge very well. I think we're going to do this guy. Now, this is a 9mm stitch. I don't want to go that big. So I'm going to make it narrower, which of course is going to make it an oval. I don't necessarily want an oval. So I'm going to shorten that stitch up, and that should give me a really pretty stitch with my glide thread. And let's move over to the needle this time. Oh, Eric, I need that light back on. I mean, it's showing great right up underneath the needle, but out here it's kind of dark where the lighting isn't from the machine. So I am going to rethread my machine. Actually, it doesn't look that dark, I guess, on your screen. It looks darker on mine. Let me know in the comments if any of you are back from my previous video of part 1. There we go. Now we've got some light. And I stitched right here with that star stitch. And that was our original little kind of cross stitch with spaces between. And I'm going to do this one in this pink glide thread. So I need to unthread and rethread. And you know, I was having a little trouble with the needle threader in part 1. And I asked Eric to take a look at it. And he said there was nothing wrong with it. It was all me.
I didn't say it was all you. I said you were trying to rush into it. And you were probably pulling it past that little hook in there or something.
Just rushing it too much.
Rushing it.
Oh, that still sounds like it's still all my fault. But anyway, I got to move the camera.
Anybody got any questions, you can put them out here on the live chat.
That's one thing about doing these videos with the camera so nice and close to the machine is it's really awkward to thread it with the camera in position. So, gotta lock it. Should have locked it before.
Give that a little tug, make sure the thread's in here.
Yep. There we go. And then cut it on the cutter. Press the button. Let's see if I'm cursed. Nope, worked fine. Gotta love it when your husband can tell you that it's operator on my part. So unlock. By the way, I didn't mention the machine itself makes different noises than all the other Janome electronic machines. It's a little bit more like a click or a chime, which I don't know that that would make a huge deal, but I am prone to headaches, and I happen to have one right now. And the sound is nicer. I did turn it down a little bit. You have the ability to lower the sound of the beeps. And I like it. You know, it's that luxury feel. So let's see how this is going to stitch out. I've never done this stitch on an applique before, so I did test it. Or no, I didn't test that one, did I? So I'm a little off center. There we go. That is not.
That's not what you had?
No. Did I bump it?
You might have.
There we go. Something that's nice about some of these decorative stitches is that it starts to do one half and then it kind of goes back to the beginning and does the other half, which can kind of throw you at first. I almost thought it was the wrong stitch, but that is a good way to make that stitch. Let's see here. Make sure I stay on track. Now again, if I was doing this off screen and I wanted to get the absolute best results, I would use my applique foot because it's easier to turn around these corners than the F foot. But the applique foot does not come with this machine standard, although it does have a ton of other feet. So I'm going to get it stopped in that center spot before I pivot back to the corner. Oh, is it blocking the way? Oh, let me flatten that down. Yeah, and because I am doing wide decorative stitches, I am using a tearaway stabilizer underneath this piece. Yep, I don't know that it definitely would need it because I am using a nice linen cotton blend for my background fabric, and then also the fabric is fused down, so it's got that support of the fusible. But I'm going to go ahead and turn, and I kind of overshot my stitch just a little bit. So, yeah, and I want to, yeah, that's going to work good. Okay, yep. I mean, I could use the hand wheel, but honestly, it's a reach on this machine to use the hand wheel to lower the needle. So being able to use it right here is just another thing in that comfort of the machine. So I am going to hit my back to the beginning button, and I want to make sure I turn that lock button off.
Down below, wasn't it?
No. Maybe this one doesn't have that. It's not really an applique stitch. But anyway, we're going back to the beginning. There we go. I love all the stitches that they've added to this machine. I really love using my decorative stitches. I know it's not everybody's jam, but I enjoy it. Let's get a little closer if I can. There we go. And you do want to make sure when you're pivoting that you're in that center line of your stitch and not out on the edge, because then you distort your design.
Question.
Okay.
Have you ever sewn through something thick with your M7?
Well, I just got it out of the box last night, so I have not. But if Mr. Johnson will find me some scrap, we'll do it here in a moment.
Want some leather?
We could use leather, but I'd rather just use woven for right now because I'd want to put a different needle on it for leather. I think this machine would do best on really thick things with the Applique Foot on. And, because I'm doing this live and half of the feet are still in the box, honestly, I am not going to change out for the Applique Foot. I think I'll put the A foot on, though. And I still have a couple of the big petals that I need to do on this, and I don't think I'm going to do that. I did bring in some other thread that I'm going to use for the center of the flower and see how it does. So I'm almost done with this petal, or inner petal, whatever you want to call it. I don't know. And I am going to hit my auto lock so that when this finishes this flower shape, it will go ahead and tie off and not make another stitch into my flower here. I'll go ahead and cut it. I do love my thread cutter. I know it's nothing new. I still love it. It's awesome. So here are a couple of stitches I did while I was waiting for my phone to recharge. Now you can see I made them from here down to something much smaller. Yeah, that'll work. Eric was just showing me what fabric he was going to hand me for that. I was just going to use some scrap. But he's pulled a bolt of mid-weight denim off of the wall. Just make it a fairly narrow strip, maybe just 2 inches. Yeah. And you do the width of the fabric, and I'll just fold it up. All right, so I want to go ahead and change out my thread. And while I've been doing the video, I've just using my regular glide thread, which is nice and shiny. It is a polyester embroidery thread. I love it for embroidery. But when I do a lot of applique with the machine and the decorative stitches, I often like to switch to a thicker thread to fill out those stitches. And this is Aurifil 28 weight thread. And there's 2 things to keep in mind with this thicker weight thread, and that is for some people you may want to go up a needle size, but right now I've got a 90-14 needle in, which is what I typically use for this thickness of thread. However, I do not use the needle threader with this thickness of thread, and that is because it is a thicker thread and it gets doubled to go through the eye of the needle. And so you wouldn't normally put 2 of these threads through the eye of the needle. They just won't fit. So I'm not going to use my needle threader because I don't want to damage it. Love the needle threader, but if you don't use it right, you will damage it, and it is not self-healing.
Nope.
I get some people sometimes, they say, well, my needle threader never worked. I'm like, did you ever have it checked out? And they're like, oh, no. Well, did you expect it to heal itself? Anyway. Oh, I just said I wasn't going to use the needle threader, and I just did out of habit. It did thread it. Threaded it perfectly fine. I don't recommend doing that. This is what happens when I am distracted and trying to do a live video. goodness. All right. We got any other comments?
No, so far.
Okay. I feel bad that we had to break it up. Let's see. I want to use some applique stitches, but not our standard, what you call it? Blanket stitch. I'm going to use a grass stitch. All right, I'm going to do number 17 in applique. That probably doesn't mean anything to anybody unless you have an M17 right in front of you. I am going to make it a little bit narrower. It's a 9mm stitch. That would be a lot of width going out into my background. I don't want it that wide. Let's take it down to 6mm. And I'm going to tighten up my stitch length just a tiny bit because I want it to lay nicely. So it's down at 0.3. That may be too much for this. That's pretty tight. I know. So I want to start it over here, and I want to keep my stitches. Let me move this up a little bit. I want to keep my stitches just to the right of the applique so that the seam is covered well. And I want to show you that hand wheel. I can't hardly get it over there. So the hand wheel is right here, and I can use that to lower my needle down and see if it's where I want it. And it is. And it's not like a mechanical, it's not just like having another lever for the hand wheel. Like a lot of long armors will have that. This is different. It's just a little, I don't know what it is, but it's cool. I like it. All right, so time for some grass stitch. And I did not change my tension. I did overdo the tightening of the stitch length. So let's make that a little smaller. This is a really easy stitch to do applique with. You just want to make sure you don't pivot unless it's on the right side of the stitch. Something else I did while I was waiting for my camera to, or my iPhone to finish charging, is I went into the settings and I adjusted the height that my pivot function will go up. That's nothing new to people who have a 9450. I think the 9400 had that. The 15,000, the 14,000. 12 has it as well. Any of the machines with that automatic presser foot, I think. And it's a feature I love because if I can lower it, then I can turn easy, but I'm not giving my project the ability to move a bunch on me. So I'm just continuing to just slowly turn it around. Trying to keep those stitches perpendicular to the cut edge of the applique. At least that's how I do it. You do you. Where's my scissors? Oh, I forgot. I have a magnet at the top to hold my scissors.
You have a place for everything.
Yep, and nothing in its place.
Yeah.
Put that up there. Maybe I won't lose my scissors as much. But it is doing a fabulous job. It's on default tension.
Looks good.
It does. Let's see. I thought I was seeing some white popping up, but it is actually the shine on the thread. I've still just got that pre-wound Janome bobbin in the bobbin case. Haven't had to change out the bobbin case, change the tension, nothing like that. All right, and let's tie that off. And I'll give it a cut. So I'm going to shut this video down. It is almost 30 minutes long, and Mr. Johnson would like for us to go home. He's back there kind of clapping his hands. So one of the things I do as part of my business is I offer online classes and an online membership for owners of certain high-end Janome machines to help people learn to use them to their fullest and with greater confidence and creativity. My main platform for doing that is my Amy Quilts Clubhouse, and I'm going to open that up to M7 owners eventually, but first I will be doing a standalone M7 new owners class. I do believe that anyone who gets this machine from a dealer should be getting good dealer support. And I know that the Janome educators are setting up a Facebook page, and they've been doing some YouTube videos to give this machine some good support. But sometimes a teacher's instructional style is not for you or is for you in my case. And so I'm making sure that there's that option. And I know a couple of my Amy Quilts Clubhouse members are moving up to the M7 and they want to continue to learn about their machine from me. So I'm going to be making that possible. Don't know when it will launch, but that just putting that out there. Thanks for watching. I hope this answered some questions about what makes this machine so very different from the 15,000, and the 15,000's still an amazing machine. But if you're ready to go from just straight workhorse Janome to just a more luxurious, more ergonomic, more comfortable machine and still have that work horse kind of quality, this is the machine. Oh, and I wanted to show you one other thing that I did while I was off screen, and then I'm going to be calling it at night. So when the machine goes to home position with the embroidery unit attached, it's here. There is actually a choice, an option to move the clamp for the hoops all the way to the back, which gives you more workspace here. And I definitely don't feel like I am hemmed in any way by having the embroidery arm here. If you've watched my videos on free motion quilting, you know that I love to stuff and fluff my machine with my quilt so that it stays close around the needle and it's only flat at the needle and where my hands are. And so that's going to act as a little fence to keep my big quilts from straightening out over my table and then being hard to move. Honestly, now all I need is a nice little board in the back, and I'm going to be set up for all my big quilts. That's what works for me. So thanks for watching. If you have any questions, leave a comment below, and I will do my best to answer them. And until then, I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.